Nathan, thank you so much for that. We are now 35 days away from the midterms. To make sure you're prepared for Election Day, KVUE News is launching a new segment, Vote Texas Face Off. You can catch it every midday on Tuesdays each week right here on KVUE. Weighing in today, Pohlmeyer and Sam Pohl. It's a pleasure to have you both with us here on Midday today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Let's start with the Senate race. The seat from Texas, held currently by Ted Cruz. Beto O'Rourke, of course, challenging on the Democratic side. Tara, what does Beto O'Rourke need to do over the next 35 days to gain that seat?
I think really Beto O'Rourke is already working on a lot of things across the state, including speaking not just to the Democratic base, but to the state as a whole. He's not just pulling in Democrats, he's pulling in Republicans as well, Republicans for Beto O'Rourke. And so Ted Cruz isn't really doing that. He's only speaking to his Republican base, and Beto O'Rourke just has a wider accepted message.
Ted Cruz has the seat currently, and depending on what poll you look on, he's either a few points up or it's really close. What does Ted Cruz need to do as we head toward those midterm elections to maintain that seat in the Republican Party?
Well, I think he just needs to keep running on his record. You know, he's done a good job working hard for Texans, and he represents Texas values. And, you know, I think in November, Texans are going to recognize that, and they're going to turn out in droves to vote for Ted Cruz.
We know that in the U.S. Senate, it's a very close divide between Republicans 51, 49. What races in the U.S. Senate outside of the state of Texas might people be watching on Election Day that could sway that from maybe the red to the blue? Is there some you're focusing on that might be of interest?
Well, you know, that's tough to say. You know, as the Republican Party, of Texas, excuse me, we focus predominantly on Texas.
Sure.
You know, there are a number of races that will be pretty tight, and you know, I think one in particular is, if I'm not mistaken, is in Montana, and I think that's actually might be going the other way. Is a Democrat might be ousted by a Republican, which is very interesting to look at.
How about you, Tara? Do you see things shifting more Democratic as we head toward the midterm?
I do think we do. I do think that Democrats are expressing a message that applies to all citizens of the United States, and they're expressing a message that really takes into consideration all of the values that not only Texans hold dear, but people across the United States. I think Republicans have showed that they don't necessarily care about women, they don't necessarily care about healthcare, and those are Democratic values that I think people really do care about.
Care to respond?
Absolutely. You know, I think that's not necessarily an accurate statement. Obviously, Republicans care about women, and we care about everyone. You know, that's why we work hard for a strong economy and you know, a good environment so that families and individuals can find success.
Let's talk about statewide races. We all know how long it's been since a Democrat has won a statewide race in Texas. I know the race for Attorney General, the race for Lieutenant Governor, depending again on what poll you look at, could be interesting as we get to November. What are your thoughts as we head toward the home stretch now in that race? Collier as a Democratic candidate going for the seat that's currently held by Patrick, and then of course in the Attorney General slot with Nelson and Paxton.
Well, we'll start with Patrick. You know, he's got a solid war chest. He's raised a lot of money, and he's done a good job. I think, you know, he's going to run a strong campaign, and he's going to win again in November, despite his Democrat challenger coming after him.
To you, for the Attorney General, Ken Paxton had some legal issues he's dealt with over the last term. What do you think about that race as we head toward midterms?
I think though the Republicans might have a lot of money in the bank and might have a lot of their Republican base behind them, I think the people of Texas really do see these Democratic values coming forward as true Texan values. And so I think that will say a lot in this election.
All right, for both of you, we've talked a lot about the seat on the U.S. Supreme Court and how that's all unfolded at the national level. From your perspective, what has that meant politically as we head now towards a potential vote for that seat?
Definitely. I think a lot of people are seeing a lot of our Republican committee members and a lot of our Republican senators really not take women's accusations seriously and not take women seriously. And that's very problematic for them. I think a lot of women and men are seeing that and saying no. I think Kavanaugh really does not express the judgment of a judge, the demeanor of a judge, and a lot of that will really come forward in the next week when we see the FBI investigation results.
Tara had the first word. We'll give you the last word.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I think the Republicans have actually done a great job, which is why, Christine Blasey Ford was offered the opportunity to testify. And that's why we've had the week delay as well. I think there's been, it's all taken very seriously. The problem is, however, that there has been no proof that has been offered necessarily. And understandable, it's been 35 years and it's very difficult to produce evidence, but it's very difficult to in a very polarized political climate to take some claims that have come on at the 11th hour as valid. And granted, we'll see how it goes this week.
A lot of eyes watching, no doubt. Sam, Pohl, Tara, Pohlmeyer, wanted to make sure I got that correct.
Thank you.
Pleasure for you to be here today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And your
Thank you.
expertise, no doubt about it. Of course, 35 days now. The home stretch is upon us. Coming